The vendors that we work with carry a 6-month product. So through June, we can get products. Past June, things will dry up. And because 80% of everything we produce and 20% of everything produced in the world comes from China. Think about that. 20% of everything we touch in the world is made in China. After June, if this thing doesn't get, or shortly and within the next few weeks, because product is going to run out, we're going to have nothing to sell. We won't have a way to make money, and we won't have the jobs that we're providing out in the community, to provide higher paying professional jobs into folks that have barriers to employment. So again, devastating effects on our entire industry and us specifically.
I think it's very real to consider that June cliff, and I'll put a pin in that. This week on the Whole Whale podcast, we are excited to be talking to Jeff Schine, CEO, co-founder of Social Imprints. I've known Jeff for over a decade. And basically, here's the context. I was like, I need swag, stuff we all get. I need that shirt. I need that thing produced at scale and well, and honestly in the US, and I need it quickly. And this is back in my more nonprofit-y working days of DoSomething.org. Jeff was the guy I called, and I am thrilled. They've been at it for over 17 years, if I'm not mistaken. And Jeff, thank you for joining us. We have a whole bunch of questions to get to, but first, socialimprints.com. Give me that elevator pitch. What do you all do?
It's good to join you again. I had a few less gray hairs when I first started working with you back about 17 years ago. So we are a full service swag company. So we do everything from custom water bottles, pens, mugs, keychains, hoodies, for a lot of the large Silicon Valley companies. So our largest clients are NetSuite and Oracle and Dropbox, Stripe, Pinterest, you name it, name brand Silicon Valley company, chances are we've worked with them. But what makes us truly unique in the marketplace and in the social enterprise space is that we're a workforce development company. So about 85% of our employees are either ex-offenders, recovering addicts, people on and off public assistance, veterans of the military, underrepresented minorities, or people undereducated, underemployed. Many of our employees check off multiple boxes, but we provide higher paying professional employment to at-risk adults, professional job training, and support services. So that's really why we exist out in the marketplace, as well as to provide some great swag to local large tech companies.
Yeah. So double bottom line, are you a registered B Corp? How are you branded in that sense?
No, we actually decided not to do B Corp. We at the time that we went through B Corp's screening, we had one of the highest scores that was ever registered in B Corp. We just decided not to go forward with it. We're doing EcoVadis rating is probably one that's a little bit more known out today as being they've kind of taken over for B Corp as kind of the standard that takes a really big environmental stance. So they're really recording a lot of more on the environmental side. But really, our social mission speaks for itself, and we really didn't want anything to overshadow this really rich social mission that we have. So, for example, we are the largest independent workforce development company in the country. So that has not, what I mean by independent is that we haven't received any government subsidies. So we operate like every other for-profit. We have investors. We have a board of directors. We have a profit sharing program with our employees, employee incentive plan. So if the company changes ownership, that 15% of the profits go towards our employee base. So we really wanted our social mission to stand out front and center and not be part of a B Corp or another organization that has their own agenda for how they value social responsibility.
I feel like that story totally justified why my intro makes sense. Why I was like, those are the folks you go to. That's who you call. And I am very curious. I love how honest you are about look, we scored well on the B Corp, but that brand, you have your own story. You don't need to ride along on that. I felt early on for Whole Whale, we got our B Corp back in 2018. And I was like, we're an agency. How do we differentiate? But I think for you, it is clear. I am curious though, business is so hard. Why also have that social mission baked into the process of how you do things?
Yeah, to be honest, the reason we exist is to serve underserved communities, right? I've started 3 companies in this space between the UK, Europe, and now North America. And I know the swag business probably as well as most, right? I understand how to start one, how to make it work, hopefully how to make it profitable and have it endure. But my passion is really around serving underserved communities, because there really isn't much attention being paid to certain parts of this community, because there are lots of organizations like Delancey Street and Goodwill that provide what we call blue collar or transitional jobs, waiting tables, selling Christmas trees. Delancey Street being maybe the largest in the country doing this. They have cafes where people are working, and a job is a job, right? So I'm not going to dismiss a job. And for a lot of people, that job, no matter what it is, can be the real turning point in their lives. But there is a huge segment of the population that's capable of doing more than waiting tables, selling Christmas trees, cleaning offices. And we are, as far as I can tell, one of the only companies in the country that's primarily focused on not only providing jobs in white collar space, sales, marketing, graphic arts, accounting, logistics, warehouse management, but also providing a real high level of training and then the support services that are absolutely necessary, because we're serving a different employee base than may be out into the workforce. And there's a certain set of needs that they may have in addition to what an employee at another operation or one of our competitors might have.
Yeah, absolutely. There's such a wealth of information, both in your experience and what you're seeing in the market. I want to go right at the big elephant in the room, which is tariffs. We are hearing about them. It is this, for many people, thing they see in the news, but they don't see it day to day. That's different for you. What do tariffs look like for Social Imprints?
I'll start off with a real world example of actually getting hit with a tariff. So we placed an order for one of our largest clients about 2 to 3 weeks before the tariffs came into effect. It was for some beanies, and we ordered it from this company in the UK. So our customer had to have this very specific beanie that we could only find with a manufacturer in the UK. So we went ahead and ordered it. It was an $8,000 order, meaning our cost was $8,000. So we get a notification about 2 to 3 weeks later that the order was getting ready to ship, and we actually got hit with a tariff. We got hit with a $13,000 tariff. And we were like, well, wait a minute, I don't understand. This product was purchased in Europe, right? The tariffs went down across everywhere else other than China to 10%. What's going on? They said, well, if you look at how this product was made, it includes Chinese ingredients, so it was made with Chinese fabric. So therefore it's subject to a full tariff. So, and the thing is, you don't know that you're going to get hit with these tariffs because the companies that are manufacturing these products have nothing to do with the tariffs. They don't know what the tariffs are. They don't know if you're going to get hit with them. They don't know how much, and they don't know when you're going to get the tariff bill, because the shipping companies are the ones that are doling out the tariffs. So we got a notice from DHL, who was supposed to be shipping those hats from the UK, that if you want these hats, now you have to pay this $13,000 fee. And this was at the very beginning of when tariffs, and we had no idea what was going on. We didn't know what it was for. We just know that our products were being held up. And so, we had to send the products back. Fortunately, they weren't printed, or they didn't have an embroidery. If they had been embellished somehow, we would have probably been forced to pay that $13,000 fee. But we were able to we had to pay for extra shipping and a restocking fee and all of that. But that was much less than, paying the $13,000 tariff. So, we have a real world example of getting hit with a tariff right off the bat. And all of our vendors and the people producing the products in their factories that we work with have no idea about what's going on, because it was never explained to anybody. And when you go and we work with a company and you order a product, there's just mass confusion out in the marketplace. And I'll end with this long-winded answer with this, that 80% of our entire industry comes from China.
I'm beginning to see how this global economy works, right? Like, you're not going to produce absolutely everything down to the woven thread that went into the raw material. There are expertises at each level. And where you all live, yes, you have to import a lot of raw inputs toward that. Are there other areas where you're bringing in that product, that shirt or that mug or that hot item of the moment, because that item changes seasonally and you have to make adjustments?
Well, so how it works is that we order certain things direct from the manufacturer, right? Where we're working direct with the people making the products. And then there's another subset of products that we work with what's called a supplier. So they're getting products in from China. It's sitting in a warehouse. And we will order those products, bring them in, and then have them embellished, screen printed, embroidered, pad printed, all sorts of embossed, debossed. On things that we have to go direct from China, over about 10,000 pieces, we will work directly with a Chinese manufacturer. All that has stopped. There's no more custom products that we can do with China because they've shut their factories down or they're producing at such a small level because no one is ordering from the US market. It's about a $25 billion market, the promotional products market, which is almost bigger than the entire rest of the world combined. So the US market really drives our industry. So we can get products that are sitting in a warehouse in the US because the warehouse, the vendors that we work with carry a 6-month product. So through June, we can get products. Past June, things will dry up. And because 80% of everything we produce and 20% of everything produced in the world comes from China. Think about that. 20% of everything we touch in the world is made in China. After June, if this thing doesn't get, or shortly and within the next few weeks, because product is going to run out, we're going to have nothing to sell. We won't have products to sell. We won't have a way to make money, and we won't have the jobs that we're providing out in the community, to provide higher paying professional jobs into folks that have barriers to employment. So again, devastating effects on our entire industry and us specifically.
I think it's very real to consider that June cliff, and I'll put a pin in that. I want to pull the thread though on a hypothetical narrative. Don't give away any trade secrets, obviously, Jeff, but what is the top selling promo item of the moment that is supported by that Chinese manufacturing?
I'll give you the top 3 or 4, right? So number 1 being hoodies, right? We work with Silicon Valley, the whole Steve Jobs, Mark Zuckerberg thing.
This place runs on hoodies, literally. Yes. I think
Mark Zuckerberg did more to change the promotional products industry than maybe any single person in the history of our industry. So hoodies are number 1. I would say water bottles, drinkware, number 2, T-shirts, number 3, bags, number 4, and then journals. Believe it or not, still the old-fashioned paper journals are super popular, would be the 5th. So those, I would say, of those 5 products represent maybe 80% of our entire, of all of our.
Gotcha. So the hoodies, for instance, I don't know if that's coming from China or the bottles or those materials.
So here's how it works. You have manufacturing all over. You have a lot of manufacturing in Southeast Asia, and you have a lot of manufacturing in Central America, Honduras, Guatemala. So while some of these products might actually be manufactured outside of China, the vast majority of the ingredients that they're using come from China. So one way or another, either the items that are used to make the water bottle, hoodie, sweatshirt come from China, like the cotton, or it's actually made in China. It's actually assembled in China. So there's really no way around it. That's why I said 80% of everything we sell has a direct connection to China.
Yeah. And so I'm going to push the narrative that is being sold to everyone right now, which is, cool, hoodies are being ordered. Can't you find a place in the US that's putting together these hoodies? Just pull them in from, Detroit. Let's just have Detroit make everything again.
Yeah, that's a great point, George. And we have heard that, and that's been a little bit of the narrative, and that's probably the narrative that's coming from Washington as well. The short answer is no, and the long answer is no, meaning it's not possible, short term or long term. That production doesn't exist. Not only does it not exist in the United States, it doesn't exist in the rest of the world. Places like Vietnam, right, that do a lot of production of let's say, garments, of t-shirts and hoodies, they don't have nearly the capacity to serve our industry. I'll give you a great real world example. I said to my COO, who manages our sales team, so he's the one in charge of sales, I said, can't we just, exactly what you said, I said, can't we just go and switch a lot of our buying to, let's, Vietnam or Mexico? He said, it would be cheaper for us to pay the tariff in China, which is, I believe, either 135 or 145%.
So what minute is?
Than to get the product in other countries, meaning the pricing in China is so much better and their supply chain is set up for this. We can get stuff shipped to us within days or weeks, versus other countries are not nearly set up to be able to, they're not nearly sophisticated to be able to handle the manufacturing of the product, the volume of product, and their pricing is way out of whack compared to what the industry is getting from China. So the answer is no.
Yeah. And the fact that
it would take years, maybe decades, for these countries to catch up. I mean, China started doing this in the 90s, probably before you were born. And so this whole idea that places in the US or overseas can all of a sudden on a dime pop up their factory, put their systems in, get their technology, hire the workers, train the workers, get the raw materials.
This isn't an overnight switch that can be flipped. This was something that a bridge needed to have been in the process of being built decades in the past.
Decades.
And so the fact that we're sitting here at the end of April, soon to be May, and you're saying like June, there's a cliff. And I know that you probably will have another 100,000 hoodies to process. This sort of fever dream that you could suddenly spin up a hoodie weaving company product in your backyard is just not real.
No, it's not just also the manufacturing. It's also getting the raw materials. So even if you have this incredible manufacturing base set up, you have the workers, you have the technology, you have the workflows, you have great pricing, for whatever reason, you still need to get the raw cotton, the metal, the clip for the water bottle, the paper for the journal, and all the things to build. You're not getting that in the United States either. Either way you look at it, from a raw ingredient standpoint or a manufacturing standpoint, China started this manufacturing process in the 1980s. Right? They have a 40-year head start on us. We're not equipped, we're not set up in this country to do low-level manufacturing, which, again, not to get too political or to become a reporter, I'm not sure we want those jobs here. We're doing quite well in the service sector, but China is doing quite well for themselves in this what's called, kind of lower manufacturing. So everybody's doing their part for the global economy in order to bring prices, to have prices at a low end, right? If you're washing machine, hoodies, pens, mugs, keychains, tires, right? There's a reason why prices are where they are, because each part of the process is being manufactured in a place that can do it the most efficiently and the most effectively. And now with what's happening is we want to kind of change that and blow up that whole system that's worked really well for businesses and consumers for probably the last 50 years.
Yeah. And, you mentioned that services layer, and the tariffs are basically a myopic look at just the materials section. So in the calculation for this trade imbalance actually is removed services, which is America's #1 export in this game. So you're like, if I carve out just this one little tiny thing, which is a anachronistic look at production, not services, mind you, which is where a lot of the value add of the United States comes in. Like, in this one domain, I now see a fault. So I don't want to parse this too long, other than your top line notes is that there is a massive cliff coming for us in June around production. This is going to hit every company, every single nonprofit conference, every nonprofit ordering swag. Like, it's coming. This cliff is real.
Yeah, we're already having conversations with our clients, even now, before this cliff comes in June, that say, like, even for products that you want now, we still have to be very selective. Like, that specific water bottle you wanted, that specific hoodie, that specific mug, pen, keychain, we might not be able to get that because there's been a run on products, right? So everybody knows what I know, which is that there's inventory through June. So there's been a run of products that people have been ordering or keeping inventories, knowing that they'll maybe use it at a later date or for an order that might be coming in July or something. So there's a lot of products that are out of stock now. So, we're having to have tough conversations with clients to say, hey, that pen that we normally supply for you, we can't get that one, but here are 3 other pens that, hopefully will work for you.
Okay.
Which is very disruptive, right?
Yeah.
Our team is spending more time doing sourcing and kind of damage control than selling. So it's really, we feel the pain now, where we'll really feel the pain of not having the products later. But we feel the pain of a complete disruption to our business right now.
Yeah. I want to turn the conversation to, what is the motivator behind this $25 billion promotional materials market? I think there's so much information, knowledge in that. When I look at the nonprofit sector, it's like, live by the bag, die by the bag, kind of like, here's your Channel 13's tote bag because you're a donor. It seems that the nonprofit industry, the one I love and care about and obsess about constantly, is around these promo products. Why?
There's two main reasons why people order products. One is for special events and one is for corporate identity. Maybe 50-50. Depends. Some companies do more events, some companies do more identity. We're a company, out of the 25,000 competitors, we're in the top 80 something. So we're like 85th largest promo product company in the country, around that 20 million mark. So we're like a medium-sized company in our industry. So we're really 50-50. The corporate identity, and we do a lot of nonprofit swag as well. But it's the same for the nonprofit as it is for the Google or the Facebook, the Oracle. It's a sense of belonging. It's a sense of identity. It's a tribalism, right? That, this is my tribe and this is who I tend to spend. This is where I'm spending my time. It not only tells about where I'm earning a living, where am I spending most of my day? Because for most of us, we're spending more time at our company than we are with our significant others and family members, right? I mean, we're spending 8-10 hours a day with these people and this company. So it tells a lot about who you are too, right? If you're working in a Google, Facebook, it says that you have a certain standing and you are, you have a certain place, a certain identity. You might be tech. It might be, if you're carrying something around with the Red Cross, it means that you care about the bigger picture and about the community in which you're serving. I would say that too for people that would carry around Social Imprints swag. If you're working for an AI company, it sends a certain message about who you are and what you're all about as well. You're forward thinking, you're futuristic, you're at the forefront of technology, you're at the forefront of learning. So I think what swag does is it really brings about a sense of belonging. And also, it's a very affordable way to do advertising for companies. So as you probably are aware of, if you were to go out for Whole Whale and try to run an advertising campaign on the radio, the TV, or Fast Company, Inc. magazine, you'd be spending hundreds of thousands of dollars. If you're doing TV, maybe more. You can get 10,000 people outfitted in a T-shirt for between $7 to $9 on a really high-end shirt and have 10,000 people walking around San Francisco wearing your logo and promoting your brand. Now I'm not a big social media guy, but I mean, I understand the power of influencers, right? So if you can get an influencer to wear your hat, your hoodie, you get a Kim Kardashian to wear your brand, you're bringing millions of people to your brand. So I would say sense of identity, belonging, and as well as a cheap way to really promote and advertise your brand are really the reasons why people order from us.
I also see it as a bit of a bellwether for increased demand for IRL, these in-person events, conferences, and gatherings. Have you also seen that? Because I've seen this whole, especially as we have gone to this like Zoom first interaction ecosystem, What have you seen in the actual numbers?
It's really interesting. We've sponsored, or we do live printing. So if a company wants us to, we'll go out and bring out a press or an embroidery machine. Come to Moscone Center here in San Francisco, or a different convention centers all over the country, and we'll actually print T-shirts, hoodies, tote bags right on the spot. And it's a really good way for companies to draw a crowd. It's kind of pulling back the curtain for how T-shirts are printed. People really, especially in the tech community, really love that, to see that. So we'll do live printing. So between the live printing that we do to promote ourselves, live printing that companies hire us for, and events that people hire us for, we've probably been in, 100 events, and we probably print for about 1,000 events a year. And I'll tell you, the power of free swag is unlike anything you've ever seen. Like, you could be giving away a mousetrap that people don't even need, but if you're giving it away at an event, people will line up for it. So the power of free is huge at an event. And especially if you're giving something away that people really want, they can bring it home to their wife, their girlfriend, their husband, whatever the case may be, their kids, right? People like to bring home stuff for their kids. Is huge. So it's really that thing of wanting to bring a memento so that you have a remembrance, and B, something to drop off for a family member. In 2020 and 2021, at that time, events were 65% of our revenue base. So that was killed. And then, so we obviously, our revenues went down by 50% in 2020. So we're used to weathering these giant storms.
Where does this compare to the COVID? We lost 50%. Where do you rank Tariffs, which is a self-inflicted injury here,
right,
in that scale of?
So I'll give you an
example.
So 2020 revenues were down by 50%. They started climbing back. Now 2022, we had the biggest year we've ever had because there was so much pent-up demand. There was, like you said, there was such a massive demand for these events. All these events just started happening at once, and everyone just kind of came out of the woods and started putting on events that they hadn't put on in the last 2 years. So we saw a 50% dip. With the tariffs, what makes it even more scary is completely unpredictable, right? So we don't know what's really going to happen. Whereas we had a decent understanding of what was going on in COVID, but where people were still ordering stuff for COVID, the potential for if the tariffs go through the year or something, we'll be out. We won't be able to sell anything. But the potential implications of tariffs are far worse than what they were during COVID.
And just to put a finer point on it, you are the quintessential American company story, thing we want in existence. And this bring manufacturing back home is, if it finds its way to fruition, potentially ruinous.
Yeah, I mean, not only are we the quintessential American startup company success, we were startup of the year, or Fast Company most innovative company of the year. We were Business Week's social enterprise of the year, right? We're what we should be celebrating as a small business. We're also a social enterprise, hiring people who have barriers to employment, right? And then we also do training that a lot of other companies. So yeah, my ego's already big enough as it is. I don't want to overinflate it more than it is. But yeah, we are a company that should be celebrated in the U.S., but yet, if these things continue, it could have massive pain for the company. Or if it goes on long enough, it could end our company, and it could really destroy the whole promotional products and marketing industry. And those are the people that are doing the manufacturing, right? So whatever manufacturing is going on in the US, we're also ordering. We order a lot of made in the USA products. Don't get me wrong, we do order more than most, actually. But made in the USA doesn't necessarily mean ingredients from the USA.
Full supply chain. It's like you said, there's just types of cotton we don't make.
There are very, very few companies that get their entire supply chain from the U.S. and manufacture in the U.S. There just really isn't. So it's also going to hurt potential promotional products manufacturers that are actually making things in the U.S. because they're not going to be able to get cotton. They're not going to be able to get steel for their water bottles. They're not going to be able to get paper to manufacture those journals.
So coming back to me interrupting you on the macro trends really quickly, 2022 is this huge release, huge explosion. And where have you seen, have you have a steady increase since then? Where did 2024 leave you in terms of this demand and the
Sure.
in-person event?
So 2022, we had this massive spike. It was the biggest year we had at Social Imprints. 23 was down a little bit just because we couldn't continue, right?
Yeah.
Those trends
Yeah.
couldn't continue. And a lot of companies in the promotional product space, the marketing space, and the event space, special events, also saw a huge increase in sales. 2023, because we're so closely aligned with the with high tech, you had a massive layoffs in tech. You had, I think it was like
Yeah.
$1.6 trillion was lost in technology valuation companies. So we felt the pain there for tech because you had record layoffs. You had this massive demand for tech in 21 and 22, which we saw in sales in the second half of 21 entire 22. So we saw a decline in 23 and we saw things coming back up in 24 because tech companies were hiring. We're very much tied to headcount. As headcount goes up, so do the sale of promotional products. So in 22, 23, you saw a massive headcount slash in tech companies. I don't know if you're aware. I mean, living here in the Bay Area, we feel it and see it and hear about it all the time because we are so tech dominated out here in Northern California. So as the headcount was going down and companies were not only not hiring as much as they were, but they're actually letting go of employees, we felt that in 20 and 23, and then things were coming up in 24. So it's been a little bit of a up and down. The company's still profitable and we're still doing well. We're just kind of seeing sales do a little bit of this kind of up and down.
Gotcha. All right. I've got a few fun random questions for you. And so I deeply appreciate your time and willingness to share so openly about the numbers of the business and how things are going. I'm curious, there's a nonprofit listening right now. What is the highest ROI, highest value promo product that you're like, why aren't more people doing this? It checks the box on the travel upside. It checks the box on the free branding publicity placement.
Yeah, before I'll give you some fun ones there, but actually it's a little bit of fun trivia for our industry that you and your listeners might find kind of interesting in what's happening in Silicon Valley. Companies are going away from promoting their brands here now. So you'll see that companies they're still putting a logo on things, but it's an inside joke. It's not their regular logo. They're promoting something very specific to only people within that organization would know. And I found that to be, as a CEO who's not involved in day to day and doesn't work directly with the clients, I found this incredibly fascinating because I'll tell you why. Because there's been a rise of kind of like things getting stolen. Like if somebody sees you have this Facebook logo on a bag, chances are there's a laptop in that bag. So it's actually interesting. Some of the really big companies they're still promoting things, but it's non just traditional logo.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought that would be interesting for you and your listeners to kind of hear a little bit of kind of, how the sausage is made here in Silicon Valley with swag. But overall, the thing that bags and hats are really the high value proposition item because you're wearing the hat and everybody's seeing it and everybody is looking at it, right? Whereas if you're wearing a t-shirt, you might have a sweatshirt over, you might have a jacket. Everybody thinks it's at Los Angeles here in San Francisco, but our summers are cold. Our summers are 60 degrees outside here. So you're almost always wearing a jacket or some type of sweatshirt or a hat. You're having it and people are seeing it, and the innovation in hats and kind of trucker hats and kind of going back to more vintage stuff is really super popular. It's really super popular these days. Also, we're seeing a huge uptick in bags because you're bringing a tote bag. It's interesting. Trader Joe's did I mentioned that Mark Zuckerberg did more for our industry than anyone. Probably number 2 would be Trader Joe's. Trader Joe's started a whole industry cottage. I can't tell you how many people call us and go, hey, I want to do 1,000 of those Trader Joe, and they're boat totes. They're called boat totes. That Trader Joe item is the single most popular promotional item in the United States, period, hands down, end of story.
That bag, people are just like, I need that, but with
That
our stuff on it.
specific bag, and it's called a, again, out there for your listeners, it's called a boat tote. That Trader Joe's, so if Mark Zuckerberg was one and maybe Steve Jobs did more for the turtleneck, people wanting turtleneck and to dress down, it's the boat tote. So now everybody wants totes because you bring them to the grocery store, you bring them, you travel with them, you bring them everywhere you go. So the amount of awareness for your brand is off the charts when it comes to bags. So people are going less into wearables these days, actually. The trends are less size specific items because when you order size specific items, there's a whole logistical issue.
The
right?
XL
You're
problem.
giving them away, right? If you're giving them away in an event, where's that box of smalls? Where's the mediums? Oh, wait, I tried on a medium. I'm actually a large. It creates a whole logistical nightmare for people that are running recruiting. We do a ton of recruiting events, right? So you're giving away swag at recruiting events at colleges. So you can just give out non-specific, non-size specific items, and it's super easy for your team to it's also easier to store, right? If you have apparel, you have to fold it, and then you have to box it, and you might be only fit 50 t-shirts in a box or 20 to 30 hoodies in a box where you could fit 500 tote bags in a box. So I think we're seeing the trends really moving away from size specific, and then the other massive trend is eco-friendly. We're seeing organic cotton, cotton made from recycled bottles, other recycled materials, biodegradables. We have certain clients like Oracle that are way, way, way ahead of the food chain and way ahead of everybody when it comes to eco-friendly. So everything we do has a massive eco-friendly component to where it has to be biodegradable so that it doesn't sit in a landfill, or stuff that has another use to it where you could take that water bottle and turn it into something else. So those are really the big trends on the eco-friendly side. On the socially responsible side, choosing vendors like Social Imprints or water bottles, mugs, keychains from companies that also have a social story to tell. For instance, there's water bottles that will track how many, your drinking habits and how many plastic bottles you're saving that are going into landfill. They'll also donate a part of the proceeds back to wells in third world countries. There's African American owned businesses that are investing in their community. There's women owned businesses that are investing in their community. So it's really the eco-friendly trends and the socially responsible trends, the non-wearable trends are really the three things that we're seeing in the industry.
Well, it's just nice to see those dollars go that way. All right, next hot question here. Give me your hot take on the potential implications of AI automation on the future of labor as you see it in your industry.
I think that where AI is really going to affect the promotional products industry is creating ordering portals, where right now we do a lot manually because we're putting together programs, right? So a lot of what we do is we will provide swag, and then we'll build a web store, and then we'll build a web store where it's going out to 20 different places, and then return packages, and then we have a 20,000 square foot warehouse in San Francisco where the items sit until they come on a web store. We manage about 40 web stores, internal web stores for our client. I think AI is really going to come in where it's going to be able to lay out the choices, where it's going to be able to present options to customers, where we're going to be having to do stuff less manually, asking a lot of questions. Maybe AI can do forms where we could set up whole programs based on if-then scenarios. If you choose an event in this part of the world, then these 5 things pop up. If you choose an event in that part of the world, this will pop up. So I think it will provide a way to handle events without it being such a manual process.
What advice would you give young entrepreneurs currently trying to enter into the ecosystem of social impact and business?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question. And I get asked this a lot. I've done quite a bit of speaking, even for the State Department, where I've talked about the state of social enterprises in the U.S. and helping other countries set up the infrastructure for them, especially in Spain and Italy, to set up social enterprises. And it's really, you first and foremost, you have to have the business case. You cannot set up a social enterprise to save the world. You have to first set up a successful business. Then you can save the world if you want. But if that business is not sound in generating revenue and generating profits, you're not going to be able to hire anybody. You're not going to be able to have social impact. So first and foremost, you have to have a successful business. And secondly, don't try to cure all the world's problems with one business. You find some, especially young social entrepreneurs, the millennials, the Gen X's, they want to fight poverty, and they want to fight hunger, and they want to provide jobs, and they want to cure homelessness. And I'm like, well, pick one thing that you really feel like you can have an impact, and just sell the hell out of that. Impact the crap out of that one thing. And then other things may come as a result of that. But again, you're not going to solve the world's problems with your social enterprise. And then the third would be endurance. You're going to get knocked down. You're going to lose. You're going to make mistakes. You're going to screw up. You're going to hire the wrong employees. You're going to choose maybe part of the wrong. So you're going to make mistakes. The best of us will make a ton of mistakes. And you have to be okay with failing. And you have to be okay with making mistakes. As long as you try not to make the same mistake twice and you learn from that mistake, it's actually part of the process, and it will toughen you up. Maybe fourth, to follow up on that, you got to be tough. Because you're going to fail and you're going to get knocked down, you have to be able to pick yourself back up. You have to have endurance, and you have to have a little bit of thick skin, and not to follow what everybody else is doing. Because if you follow what everybody else is doing, you would never in a million years start your own business, because most of them fail. And even the ones that succeed, it's exceedingly difficult. Then you added the social mission, you add the social enterprise onto it. You're really operating in a very challenging environment. So endurance, and just keep moving forward.
I love it. What advice did your parents give you that you either followed or did not follow?
They told me not to do it. They told me that starting your own business is going to be really difficult. Now, I come from a long line of entrepreneurs. I think my parents really didn't understand this whole idea. Like, for them, starting a business was about making as much money as you possibly can. My parents being in the baby boomer generation, they didn't really understand this whole idea. Wait a minute, so you're going to start a business and you're going to try to help people? Like, I don't really get it. So I really feel in some ways that my dad, when I graduated college, he begged me to take over his business. He has a very successful business in San Diego that I could have walked right into, taken over, and my life would have been a lot easier. But I really wanted to. It was important for me to forge my own way and to make a difference in the community. For me, business is about a vehicle for change in the community. It's not about how much money can I possibly make, because if that was the case, I'd be doing something else. For me, I'm passionate about business. It's the thing that, maybe with sports that I probably know a little bit about. And so for me to take what I'm super passionate about and be able to teach others to have, so that they can have careers, especially a disadvantaged group, and go out and really have productive people who've been with us for Social Imprints for 10, 15 years, who have gotten married and had kids and bought homes, maybe not in San Francisco, but outside of San Francisco, to see that, it's been really inspiring that the business is working. We are making a change, and we're helping other people start businesses, and we're achieving what we wanted, which is to have a big positive effect on the community. And for me to be able to do my passion, which is operate a business.
I love it. Jeff, how do people find you? How do people help you?
Again, if you guys have events coming up, if you're giving away, we do e-commerce stores, internal stores. We set up external stores. If you have swag that your company wants to sell, we have gifting portals where, you can do client gifting. You can do internal gifting. We have portals set up for that. Obviously, swag, we're a 3PL. We do pick and pack, kitting, packaging, all that good stuff. We're full service promotional product swag provider. So we would love to work from you, hear from you about your project, see if we're a good fit to work together. Socialimprints.com. We're getting going on social media. We'll be having a much bigger presence than we've had soon. We've been fortunate that we've never done any marketing. All the business we get is through referral and word of mouth. But, again, look us up on Social Imprints. I'm at jeff@socialimprints.com. If you want to reach out for any orders, if you're thinking of starting your own social enterprise, feel free to reach out, and I'll try to help, in any way that I can.
Jeff, thank you for what you do, and more importantly, how you do it.
It's great to see you again. And thanks for all the great work that you do as well.